a special 13 investigates. Our Chelsea Bimeford teamed up with Grant Blankenship from Georgia Public Broadcasting, Joe Kovac from the Macon Telegraph, and Adam
Ragusa with Mercer Center for Collaborative Journalism on the story. It's a small part of our year-long look at solutions to youth violence in Macon. We call it Piecing Together. Those journalists dug into data showing across Macon-Bibb, children as young as 10 are committing crimes. But why? And at what age does the change from innocent child to violent offender happen?
Here's what they found out.
On Villa Avenue, things are fairly quiet outside Will Ferrier's home.
I grew up where you never locked your door. You could leave the keys in your car.
But that place wasn't in Macon.
You didn't go out of the house and ignore the person next door. You said, "Hi, how you doing this morning?"
Before moving to West Macon, Ferrier lived in the Bloomfield area for more than a decade, a neighborhood that reported dozens of aggravated assaults, homicides, and robberies when we mapped out violent crimes across Macon-Bibb last year.
It used to be really bad. Shoes up in the wires, kids running down the street in the middle of the night, and I had 2 boys shot in front of my house.
He's seen children of all ages do all sorts of bad things around town, and back in the day, Quentin Johnson may have been one of those kids.
Trouble is easy to get into.
Johnson grew up on Poppy Avenue in the Unionville area.
It's tough. It's a tough neighborhood. I mean, we hear gunshots all the time.
One time a bullet even came through the wall of Johnson's home. But when he was 14 or 15, Johnson says he found a hobby that helped him keep out of trouble.
When it brought this keyboard from Radio Shack, and it had what you call a sequence on it, so that you can lay tracks and make music on it.
And while Johnson was making beats, some of his friends were developing rap sheets. Years later, the same can be said about hundreds of youth in Macon-Bibb. According to data from the Bibb County Sheriff's Office, in the last 3 years, more than 700 youth ages 10 to 24 were charged with violent crimes like aggravated assault, rape, and robbery. Additionally, more than 40 people in this age range charged with homicide. You can start to see the shift here around age 16, when crime appears to spark for our youth.
People do things that they feel like they gotta do to survive.
Johnson says he remembers old friends and classmates stealing things simply because they didn't have enough money for clothes or food. In other instances, Johnson says he watched people fight violence with more violence, which creates a never-ending cycle.
So somebody gotta be there to step in to give you the crutch that you need.
For Johnson, that person was his mother, but not every kid in our community has a positive role model. Johnson is hoping to help combat that, even if he can only reach a few young people at a time.
Just try to be positive influence, man, even when things get rough. Even when somebody shoot through the house, even when somebody break in.
Right now, he's teaching some children to play the piano and the drums, hoping to show them that there's more to life than walking the streets.
You got 1, 2.
As for Mr. Ferrier, he's checking on his neighbors, hoping that building trust and relationships with teens and neighbors will start to shift our community's mindset.
If we don't care about each other, then what's the purpose of being here?
In Macon, Chelsea Bimeford, 13 WMAZ News.
And coming up later in our youth violence series, we will be highlighting some of the mentorship programs around town and other resources available to help your children stay on the right path.
If you'd like to take a look at that data we've compiled from the Bibb County Sheriff's Office on violent youth crimes, you can find this story on our website, 13WMAZ.com.